We've been discussing in our conversation, we've sort of had an understanding that fathers are a central part of how we show up. And yet not all of us either had or we have in our lives people who do not have close relationships with their fathers. And we actually had a question related to child support and the ways in which the family legal system has been weaponized in ways that can allow for child support to be a wedge in a family, can allow for families to be driven apart. And I can speak about this as a child of somebody whose mama never got the child support. I can speak about it as somebody who has friends who want nothing more than to be with their children who are not able to because of the vitriol between them and the other parent. Any of you have any insight on the ways in which Black men who want to be present, but who perhaps are prevented from doing so because of the system, the relationships? And you'd mentioned somebody, or it might have been somebody in the chat, I can't remember who, they're a parent now at 60 of a 13-year-old, but back when they had a 21-year-old, they was a much different type of parent. And so, thinking about some of the ways in which our family dynamics can go wrong, any of you have any thoughts about that and the ways in which those systems can plague us as well?
I've been paying my child support, right? I gladly pay it. And for no other reason than if somebody's going to be taking care of my kid, right? Taking care of my kid, who's going to do a better job than his mom? Like, would I be able to pay somebody else to do that?
Wow.
Right? Because I can't. I'm working a lot, right? So it's impossible. It would be impossible for me to be a single dad, right? With what I do, right? So she has to, somebody has to be able to do that. And then who would be best to do that, right? So, what do you need to make that happen? I mean, she's not like a dysfunctional person. She's a great mom, so I don't have any complaints like, yo, this dude looks crazy or anything like that, right? He's loved, he's safe, never comes and complains. So I'm like, listen, whatever you need, go for it, because this is a great thing. And, I'm going to talk a little, crap right now, right? But the reality is, if you're a woman and you dated with me, you had a child with me, the expectation is that things are going to be a little bit different from you. I understand that. I understand that part of it too. You didn't get with me to be like, oh, this dude's a loser. You were saying, you got with me because you understood, part of the thing that comes is some of this financial stuff, right? And so, for you to have my child and then have a problem with the finances, that's not a good look. So personally, the way I see it is you mess with me, you have my kid, you're golden. You straight. I don't make bad decisions in terms of the people. The moms are great or whatever. It just didn't work out, but that other stuff, go for it. I pay for the extra stuff. I don't mind doing all the activities and all that good stuff. Go for it. You're supposed to be able to you're supposed to be able to live in good. You got my kid, Shorty. What are you talking about here?
now extrapolate from that. What if your financial situation were not where it is?
So real talk, right?
Because just pause. That should be the norm, right? If you have that should be the norm. But for a lot of people, their financial situation would not allow that.
I do say this, right? And I've seen this. I've had discussions with women about this, right? And I've told them, my take on it. I was like, if you want that man to step up his game, you got to help him out a little. Don't stomp him, right? So if he's made some bad choices, let's say, I want to do this. He had this idea of a business or whatever venture, and then it crashed out, right? So lost all his money. Or whatever's going on, right? And he's not, right? You got two options, right? You could either add to his turmoil and troubles, right? And just kind of stomp him into powder, right? But you ain't going to get your money that way. You ain't going to, if you finish the job off, you ain't going to get the money, right? So the other option is I got to work with this dude. If you want that, you have to work with him because he ain't working out by himself, right? And so if there's a way for you to coach him up, talk to him, support him, tell him listen, I believe in you, whatever it is. But if that goal, if that's what's important to you, you want to get your money, you want to get the child support, you want to make sure that you and your kid are taken care of or whatever, and he can't do it at the moment, right? Instead of assuming that he's a complete loser, think about keep your eye on the money. What are you going to do to get this going? If you got to coach him up, inspire him, motivate, whatever you got to do, homeboy, I need that money, right?
Now, Hervé Damas, I hear a whole lot of women in the audience in my ear right now say, I know that brother ain't say I'm supposed to build him up. He should have. I can hear it. I can hear the reaction.
It is what it is.
But the way you frame that is interesting. If your goal is to get the in this particular situation, if your goal is to get the support that you need to be able to raise this particular young human into an adult, you have to think about how you're going to approach what could be a very vitriolic situation. Correct. Brian, I saw you say that you had experienced something that...
all the extremes.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen the brother who's not paying because he's doing his own thing. Yep. And I grew up in a household where mom was taking care of us and you know, pops give money here and now, but, you know, be in Vegas and doing different things. And then I've seen situations. I'm with somebody I'm really close to right now who doesn't even get to see his son, wants to see his son, being taken to court. He's trying to get on his feet. And it's just a toxic situation. So it's hard for me to, I've just seen so many different examples. But as a kid who grew up and didn't really get a lot of that child support, I have more empathy for, I have more empathy for the women because usually women are the ones that are holding us down. When in my experiences, most of my friends I grew up with single moms that was holding it down and dads having the choice to kind of come and go. I know that's not every example, but I also know that black men have had, were typically in the worst conditions to be providers and protectors, and sometimes that's why we left to begin with, which is something that's systematic. So that's a tough. That's a really tough situation. I think there are so many different examples.
Yeah. I believe in family interventions. I believe in the people who love those two people and love that child who are around them. I believe in family interventions.
Say more about that.
In the fact that if that's your grandchild, right? That person on the other end of that conversation may have been horrible partner or husband to your daughter, but at this point they still have to co-parent, intervene, get them together, get the other parents together, or get the community, not community like everybody in your business, but the family who care about that. I believe that like family intervention and like helping those people reset their priorities or reset their values is worth it to that child. And they're going to spend all this money with lawyers and the vitriol and all of that, and maybe spend some of that money with therapy or the family surrounding them to say, what would it take for the two of y'all to get to a consensus?
I love that. That's the village again.
That's the village piece of it, right? And I've seen that happen in churches when I was younger, and I've seen that happen in families when I was younger. And they still might not have been besties at the end, but they got to a place of clarity and they got to a place of reset. And even if you can give your kid a reset of 3-4 years that you good and you figuring it out, that's 3-4 years that's better than when y'all fighting and arguing and you ain't getting the money anyway.
That's
or they can't see their father.
Or they can't see their father.
Wasting money on the lawyer.
On the lawyer.
And all that stuff. That's like, you know what I'm saying?
Because that lawyer going to take your money regardless.
Off the top. Off the top. As an attorney can confirm. Off the top. Now, we have a question that's purely not serious in any real way, shape, or form. But they said, Brian, do you use a fan when you line dance? And whether you do or not, is there a stigma for brothers using a fan? And where's my fan?
So
I got my fan.
It's funny
right
you
here.
say that because
got my fan center for on social
my wife be
justice
doing
fan.
her fan, and I just kind of chilled. Like she told me that there's a cool way. She told her and my mother-in-law told me that there's a cool way to do the fan, and I just said, nah, I'm a chill. Yeah, so I don't know. You know.
But would there be a stigma? Do you think for brothers?
I'm gay and I don't do the fan. I'm just gonna put it out there, and I don't do the fan. I can't do the fan. I throw my shoulder in there. Even in June, I'm just gonna put my shoulder on there.
Not even for pride.
Not even for pride. Okay. But I like to see people do it though.
I ain't mad at it.
What I've learned is you got to get the fan. It's got to get. You got to. It's in the wrist. You got. And if you don't hear that sound, you ain't did it right. So there's that. But final question from the audience, because we've got a lot of great comments in the audience. And Jonah, if you could please save the chat because I want to scroll through. I've seen some that you've sent me. Y'all are dope. Shout out to the audience. But we have a question. There are at least one of you is a member of the D9. You also are a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Wedding fans. So the question that we have here is that D9 organizations can be hesitant and skeptical to take the lead on a lot of these movements, understand and talking about social justice movements because of their 501c3 status. But we need to get involved and step up because the very institutions we built to protect us are being torn down. What is your advice for the members of the D9? What is your advice for D9 organizations? Actually, I'm going to broaden this out, whomever. What is your advice for D9 organizations to get involved and to act without jeopardizing tax status? Or how do we navigate this and have a bigger impact more than the days at the Capitol? For you all, each organization has for example, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has Delta Days at the Capitol. And so all the organizations have a day at the Capitol. There's social justice and activism is sort of built into what the organizations stand on. But there's been, I think, some credible critique as to the fact that these very well-structured, very well-funded organizations have some opportunities to step up that perhaps they have not, all of them. Any advice for how, and then I'll say yes, the D9, but even beyond that, how organizations that were designed to meet our needs specifically can show up better in this moment?
Well, I'll start again. I'm a Q. I don't have to say anything else about it. I'm a Q. I don't have to say anything else. It just stands out by itself. But are you going to answer the question, though? Right? So, the organizations, if you look at our Greek letter organizations, they've been really, really a big part of the fight for rights in this country for a long period of time. It's kind of part and parcel to a lot of what we do. A lot of our nationally mandated programs involve outreach, voter registration, and a bunch of things. So we're always doing that. I like to do things more on a local level than a national level. I find that, a lot of what we've spoken about today involves more local, smaller things. And if you look at, kind of way the Republican Party is consolidated power and done a lot, they've done a lot of local things before they did like the crazy national, but they set up the infrastructure locally. Yep. And I think that we've, kind of sometimes missed the boat on that and the impact that our local efforts have, because that's where people, like, you see people every day, like you were talking about, you see people on the stoop. So, I personally do a lot of stuff. I do marijuana expungement programs. We do like get together with attorneys who would volunteer their time and services to kind of like get these people back into the workforce, clear their records. So I think there's opportunities more at the local level, but that's just my personal outlook on things.
Yeah, for me, my honest opinion, I do believe we deviated from our purpose in several ways. I believe all our national organizations that were built for our progression during a time period where we've seen a lot of regression. I'm not going to say they're obsolete, but we have to change not just our leadership, but what are we being inclined to do? I believe most of the Greek life organizations are very much social. When we was built for civic engagement, belonging on collegiate institutions and universities. And then outside of, I love all fraternity and Greek life, even though I am an alpha. What I do say is that there's a time period where we need to put our differences aside and come together as a collective. So no longer should it be AKAs, alphas, deltas. It should be the NPHC, meaning our National Panhellenic Council, right? That's something most people that's outside of Greek life don't understand. But there is a council where we all do come together. And I believe that needs to happen not only with our Greek organizations, but in the streets as well, where we put our individual differences aside to come together as a collective. Because right now it's an attack on, we saying black men, black women, not against alphas, against Qs. It's an attack against us as a nation. So when does a nation come together? And there's no way we going, as a divided nation, will we beat or be able to put up a fight against the administration of friends. Right, so that's my stance on it. I do believe we deviated. We don't own any houses on our college campuses for the most part. And when I went to Syracuse University, there was no alpha house. There wasn't. I don't understand that. I see a lot of our older brothers, they got the top cars, watches, top positions. But our undergraduate brothers are graduating unemployed. I'm not seeing a pipeline being built. Right, my deltas moving 100s. Y'all packed out whenever y'all come.
This is
but
true.
I need to see that in the neighborhood, in the hood. The young black women need to see y'all represent that way. Y'all need to walk down in the hood, 1,000 deltas. The black woman will be like, I never seen this before. I haven't seen women. Some of the young men never seen how men supposed to carry themselves. I need 1,000 alphas to walk down Gates Avenue. I need 1,000 of us. They going first time I go to speak. Some of these young men's like, I never seen it before. When I go to speak, it's like, yo, I love to be that, but I never seen it. Now that I see it, I like what Jordan doing.
Yeah.
Feel me? So I believe we deviated in many ways, and it's time for us to get back to our purpose.
And we were talking about that earlier in the green room. We're not maximizing, and I'm not part of those organizations, but I do know, and I've lived in 5 cities, and I got dozens of friends who are part of those organizations, and they're social. In any city I go to, I can find a party. I can always find the party. And these are individuals that have degrees, that are professionals. And if we ever got back to original intent, I believe these organizations would be at the forefront in terms of access, in terms of wealth. If the amount of energy we put into the parties from college all the way on. In the hood, kids don't know anything about it. And everybody, when you talk, they talk about their program, but I'm in 20-something schools. None of my kids know those legacies. And to me, if we had real original intent, and this is no disrespect, I believe every one of our communities should feel the force of our professional black men and women who join these organizations, and on that night we're holding stuff up and doing all those things and talking about the legacies. We don't feel that in the hood. And that's not to say that there aren't individuals that are doing things. My boy Sean, who's a Kappa in Brooklyn, he taking kids to Africa. There are people, I know examples of people who are using that, but they, in my opinion, are the exception.
It's too many attorneys in those organizations for 501(c) status to be that big of an issue. So it's too many workarounds for that.
Where them fans
It's too many workarounds for
We're
that.
going to end on that. That'd be crazy.
Listen.
Too many lawyers.
I think that is exactly where we have to end, because we started out talking about the importance of the village and the village members who poured into each of you. And now we are looking at the state of the village and recognizing that we have to build the infrastructures. We have to sustain our capacity to pour into each other. We've got, a minute left? We've got a minute left.
Yeah.
If you could just 2 sentences to close us out, your best hopes for black men who are coming behind you and who are listening to this conversation.
I'll go. I would say I always would love for us to bring somebody younger with us in any space that we occupy. The reason why I'm here, one of them is because of Brian, So I think that, and I have a lot of my friends here as well in attendance. You should never enter a space without somebody younger than you or in a generation under you present as well.
I see.
And I would just say, as bad as things are, the more we learn about our history, the more we'll understand how resilient we are. I like to just kind of remind myself that we are the descendants of those who have survived the most horrific conditions known to mankind. If you drown out the ocean, there are millions of us that didn't make it, and we are descendants of those who survived. And I think when we understand what's been done to us, we can even have more empathy for our brothers and understand the trauma. And we have to create mechanisms. Whether it's in our personal households or whether we're in positions to start organizations, we have to be accountable and create mechanisms that are going to counter the narrative and reverse this trend. And no one can do it but black men. No one's coming to save us. Women been holding us down for a long time. They are waiting on us.
I would say, and Brian mentioned this earlier, that freedom comes we had a talk about this, that freedom comes in different ways. My kids are more free than I was, and I'm more free than my father was. And, as we move forward, you need to continually keep in mind there are things that you don't even know. There's what did Ashcroft say? What was this? There are known knowns and then the unknowns, but then the unknown unknowns, right? But there are a lot of unknown unknowns for us here, right? And there are some known unknowns here for us. And freedom for us comes in being able to even conceptualize that our circumstance is not what we're supposed to be in, and I always think about that, like there's got to be more spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, financially even, right? And so, that constant pursuit of like freedom and like being able to buck the system and make choices that are outside of what you're supposed to be or what the structure has set up for you. Go ahead, man, push the boundaries, go for it. Like, what I'm saying? Go ahead, make it happen.
I love it.
Finally, I would say that young black men and black boys deserve our extra effort. They deserve our specificity, right? We have organizations that we've created for young black women, and they're excelling, and that's amazing. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Those young men deserve our extra effort and our specificity. So
I love that. And I'm reminded, Brian, I was telling you about this. When our son was younger, he came up in the era of Doc McStuffins. And I'd always wanted to be a doctor when I was a little kid, but I grew up in a time when it was okay for girls to not be good at math and science. And so you just shuffled on. And I was like, all right, I'll go to law school. But I remember when my son, he came up in the era of Doc McStuffins, he had a pediatrician who was a black woman. And so for him, doctors were girls. And I remember having a conversation with him when he was little. I was like, well, what do you want to be? And I was like, what about being a doctor? He was like, oh, well, that's for girls. Because he had been exposed to a female black, you remember our Black Caribbean woman doctor, and Dr. Oford he had before that. Shout out to Dr. Oford. I was just talking about him yesterday. But for him, the specificity that went into ensuring black girls knew that black girls code, black girls STEM, black girls, like coming up, I was like, dang, I could have used some of this black girl focus and attention. But that specificity that the community and the village provided for black girls, it is working. And that level of specificity worked so well, it had convinced my 7-year-old child that being a medical doctor was something that female people do. And I think that when you say black boys deserve our intentionality, they deserve our specificity, black men deserve us and to have an intentional focus, I think that really does sum up what it was we were trying to do here today and creating space for this conversation. We are going to save the chat comments because I see the chat comments. Y'all are in the chat. I love it. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the mixtape team who's provided resources and wonderful opportunities for us to gather. Shout out to the SiriusXM community. Mina and Jonah, really appreciate you too and how you show up. And as I say every single day at the end of my show, I need us to figure out how our purpose aligns with the needs of our people, walk in it with our back straight. I need us to tap into our Harriet Tubman, Marcus Garvey, Nat Turner love so we learn to love each other harder than we were taught not to, learn to create pathways of opportunity for those who need it, and learn to uphold and defend the sanctity of black lives, yes, and black men's lives specifically. I love y'all. I'll be back tomorrow on air and where them fans at. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.